When I was younger, I watched an anime called Shinzo, and now I wonder if anyone remembers it. Hey kids, welcome back to the channel. I am Uncle Frank, and I hope that you are having a great day. Today, I wanted to sit down and have a little discussion about my feelings towards hype, hate, FOMO, and all of the pressures that can affect the price of a product at release and shortly after release. This conversation is primarily centered around TCGs, but it can also be reflected in other hobbies, video games, sports cards, toys, etc. So while this video is focused on trading cards and trading card games, just keep in mind that some of my thoughts can also be applied to other parts of the collectibles market. Now, I think this is going to be a fairly short video since I don't have a whole lot to say on the subject, but I do at the very least want to just, have this quick conversation, and I'll start by defining FOMO first. FOMO, or the fear of missing out, is that kind of driving pressure that causes a lot of people to buy into something even at higher prices than it MSRP. And FOMO is caused by a lot of things: hype, the expectation of value, maybe it's just a product that a lot of people really, really like, and there can be all sorts of pressure caused by FOMO that can create a situation where a product quickly becomes far more expensive than anybody anticipated. When this happens, you can see boxes that MSRP at $100, $110, $120, $150 quickly creep up on the secondary market to the $200 range, the $300 range. And when that happens, a lot of people are sort of priced out of the product, and at the same time, it creates that TCG bubble, that cardboard bubble, one that only really has two end results. Either the bubble pops or it doesn't. And neither are great for the short term, but they can be good in the long term. Let me explain. You see, if it is indeed just a TCG bubble and that product is artificially inflated on the secondary market, a reprint or a release of somebody's personal collection can bring that product down to an affordable level for everybody else in the market. That is a good thing for everybody who wasn't holding the bags. Conversely, if it's not a bubble and that product is settled at its new price and can only go up, then the people who got in early and bought it when it was relatively cheap, those guys are really happy. As you can see, neither of these situations lead to everybody being happy. After all, you either have a situation where the people who were hoping to get it cheaper finally do get it cheaper, and the people who were holding it lose out, or the people who were hoping to get it cheaper lose out, and the people who got in make money. Either way, there's winners, there's losers, and that's just the natural state of the market. Now, while I would never try to dictate how other people spend their money, I personally do my best to avoid products that are experiencing that hype and FOMO cycle, because it's a really bad financial situation for me if I buy into a product that is currently 2 times its MSRP only a few weeks after release. And during that window, there's always the risk of a new print wave entering the market, some distributor unloading their holdings, and the price crashing down. For some people, that's not a problem. After all, it gives them the opportunity to buy more. But for someone like me who doesn't have a huge stockpile of cash sitting around, who has to be really careful with the money he has, buying something at $200 only for it to a few weeks later crash down to $100, or even a few months later crash down to $100, that can represent a huge risk on my part. So I have to be really careful to avoid buying into something, even if it seems really good, if it's being affected by a lot of market hype. And again, like I said before, I would never presume to tell other people how to spend their money. I can just advise caution. If a box comes out, its MSRP is $120 and the secondary market price is $215. It's only been a few weeks since that product came out. Maybe, just maybe, be a bit more selective with how you choose to spend your money. Inversely, what really gets me excited on the subject of secondary markets is market hate, market rejection of a product. You see, in some card games, boxes will come out and have their MSRP up, and everyone hates it. Everybody hates the set. It's doing really terribly. It loses 10, 20, 30, 40% of that MSRP on the secondary market, and stores are selling it at discount rates just to get it off their shelves. When that happens, that is when I am the most interested in buying any given box, regardless of what's necessarily in it, the contents of the set, etc. You see, when it comes to hype has a tendency to pass on. People won't be super excited about the new set forever. The same is true of hate. If a set comes out and everybody hates it, everybody rejects it, everybody just dumps it for discount prices, that might not necessarily be true forever, and there could come a day in the future when that box, which was dumped for absolute bargain bin prices, is no longer worth bargain bin prices. You see, on a long enough time scale, collectability and desire have a tendency to make even really bad sets worth some cash. Let me go ahead and give you some examples. You see, this is Ghost in the Shell. It is a Force of Will expansion set, and it did really, really bad on release, and these boxes absolutely tanked in value. I saw that it was Ghost in the Shell. I love Ghost in the Shell, and I know that there are people out there who also love Ghost in the Shell, meaning there's a decent chance of this set becoming a collector's item that's desired not because it's a Force of Will set, but because it's a box with Ghost in the Shell cards in it. Now, when I started buying these, they were about $30 to $35 a box. Now it's been well over a year later, and they're about $60 to $70 a box on TCG Player, which means the handful of these that I bought effectively doubled in price basically in the span of a year, which is absolutely phenomenal on a TCG scale. And, I absolutely love this example, but I love it more for the fact that it's Ghost in the Shell than for any money I made out of it. The other example I want to give is one that I think I'll be giving time and time again until the end of this channel. You see, this is Scarlet Violet Base, the first of the most recent Pokemon block, and these hit a low of $90 a box, I think, and in my opinion, that's just insane that any Pokemon box could be $90, especially coming off the absolute hype train that was the COVID era Pokemon bull run. And yeah, there was a lot of negativity, a lot of disdain for these sets when they were brand new, but it's very important to remember that for completely different reasons, I think buying Pokemon boxes when they're on a discount is always a pretty good idea. You see, Pokemon is just the biggest IP on the planet, or at least it's one of the largest IPs on the planet, and it continues to be one of the most successful trading card games. And it doesn't really matter how good the cards are, because there's people who will just collect them because they're the favorite Pokemon. There are cards in this box that will never, ever be playable in a deck, but somebody wants them just because it's their favorite Pokemon. I just realized I probably could have used these Dragonite deck boxes as a better example, but it doesn't really matter. What I'm trying to say is, if I see a product come out and then suddenly spike to several times its MSRP, I have a lot of reason to not be interested in buying it. But if a product comes out and 6 to 12 months after release, not a lot of people like it, and its price is tanking. I inspect it closely. I don't automatically think every single box that has lost 20 to 40% of its value is a guaranteed buy. That's insane to think. However, when they do lose a lot of their value, I start to examine them to see if there's something there that might make them worth it down the road. Ghost in the Shell I bought because I know Ghost in the Shell is just a really good IP. There's a lot of fans. Pokemon is just always good. You might find something out there that only has 1 or 2 things about it that make it a highly collectible box. And if that box is cheap enough, those reasons can make it very tempting to buy some of it just to have it. This is my final example of the video, I promise. The Shell Showdown TCG is absolutely bad, but the Shell Showdown cartoon was pretty popular back in the day. Do I think this will gain value? No, I grabbed it because I'm a fan of the IP and because I'm a sucker for dead TCGs, but that alone can be something that's valuable to you. If something is cheap enough, regardless of how bad it is, it might still be a good buy. I grabbed this for, I think, $5 from one of the local stores who just had it rotting on a back shelf, and that's good enough for me. But, you know, when it comes to TCGs that are in print, you know, maybe a box being 30 to 40% cheaper than MSRP is really all you need to see for it to be a good buy. Anywho, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, please leave a like on the video. Consider subscribing. A comment is always welcome. Share it with a friend. And remember, I need to get healthy. So for every like you leave on this video, I will do 1 push-up in the next video. I'll see you guys then. My hair is toughing out. It does not want to behave. My previous video got 16 likes. That's 16.